to take on the Giants. Eagles are favored by 7.5 on the road, and the over-under for the game is 41.5. Not necessarily a high-scoring matchup. Let's talk about the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, if you have him, you're probably starting him. There are plenty of players in really good matchups that I like ahead of Jalen Hurts this week that you could get on waivers. Someone like Matt Stafford, for example, playing the beat-up Ravens. But if you have Jalen Hurts, there's a good chance you drafted him to start him most weeks, and I'm generally starting him. Saquon Barkley, he's a go. He's a go. There's not really a ton to say about that. Giants have been in the top 10 for points allowed to running backs. So if for some reason you were thinking you wouldn't start Saquon, you should start Saquon. Let's talk about the receivers for the Eagles because I think that's some of the most interesting stuff to talk about. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith having team meetings with Jalen Hurts. I've been slow to drop these guys in my rankings throughout the weeks. I have moved both of them down where you might not be starting A.J. Brown if you've hit on a lot of players like Emeka Egbuka. Maybe we're taking Cortland Sutton over him. And Devonta Smith is kind of just a flex play at this point. I'm not exactly sure what is happening with the Eagles this year. It could just be the change of offensive coordinator, losing Kellen Moore, moving on to someone new, and everything is not quite working the way that we want it to. I think there are better days ahead for these wide receivers. They're still immensely talented on a very good team, so you want those types of players. It just hasn't worked out early on in the season for fantasy. At tight end for the Eagles, Dallas Goedert, he's been finding the end zone recently. In past years, we've said there's a lot of mouths to feed in this passing game, so it can't be all of A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert. And recently, it's been Goedert in the end zone. That has been working. I don't expect them to really go away from it, but it's tight end, so they might. That just is kind of how tight end works. Let's talk about the Giants. Jackson Dart, he's been a start for me. The rushing floor for quarterbacks, it's just really, really valuable. If you're going to run 10 times for 50 yards like he did his first week or anything close to that, you're a borderline fantasy starter. I've got him just outside my top 12 this week, mostly because of all of the guys in really good matchups. Like that would be like Jordan Love playing the Bengals would get moved ahead of him. Like we talked about with Matt Stafford playing the Ravens, Justin Herbert against the Dolphins. Justin Herbert's become a little bit more matchup dependent, but in a great matchup, all of those guys in great matchups is going to push Jackson Dart further back. The Eagles are heavily favored in this game, which could lead to some scrambling from Jackson Dart or playing catch up and passing. If he's your best option, he's okay. This isn't a must sit, but there are plenty of really good options. Let's talk running backs for the Giants. We've got Cam Scatterbo, and I think people are just forgetting Tyrone Tracy. So I've got Scatterbo as a decent flex option. Without Tracy there, he's been okay. Something that surprised me about the Eagles was that they're actually top 10 in terms of points given up. They give up within the top 10 most points to fantasy running backs. Now, this is only through 5 weeks, and one of those weeks was without Jalen Carter, so that is still a small-ish sample size, but I'm not really super scared of this matchup. It has not been a shutdown run defense, and I think with the players that the Giants have, Cam Scatterbo, Tyrone Tracy, both as good pass-catching options, I think they would still be startable. They're just not immense talents. All right, wide receivers for the Giants, Wan'Dale Robinson, he's a decent deep desperation flex. With Darius Slayton out, I would move Wan'Dale up into like consideration tier, but if I can get away from using Wan'Dale Robinson, I generally am. And Theo Johnson has been seeing a larger percentage of the snaps and a larger percentage of the targets in this offense. He found the end zone twice on Sunday. I don't like to chase touchdowns at the tight end, so he's startable. He's within the tier of teams that have a fantasy relevant-ish tight end, but he doesn't excite me. Let's move on to the next game, the early Sunday morning game. The Broncos play the Jets overseas. Let's talk about the Broncos. Bo Nix playing the Jets defense. If I can get away from teams overseas, I can, or I will. And in this matchup, I've got Bo Nix kind of outside my top 12. The Jets don't have an amazing defense this year, but they do still have Sauce Gardner and are still a viable, they're not a horrible NFL defense. So I've got Bo Nix as a decent start option, but with plenty of great options, he kind of gets pushed back, just like we've talked about with other players. Running backs for the Broncos, it's J.K. Dobbins. If you have him, there's a very good chance you're starting him. He's a great RB2 option for the full year. And then R.J. Harvey, I just want to see it. This team has not been using him. He has had okay weeks. He performed against the Bengals. I don't know if he does against the Jets. The Jets have not been amazing on defense against really any position. So we could see it, but I'm not excited to start RJ Harvey this week. Cortland Sutton is someone you're starting. Troy Franklin, as well as other odds and ends in the wide receiver room for the Broncos, I'm trying to stay away from. And Evan Ingram has not been a reliable enough option. There are plenty of players I would choose to start over Evan Ingram. Let's move across the field to the Jets, where we have Justin Fields. Again, it's a tough matchup on both sides here. So I've got Fields at around 14-15. The exact number will be on your screen. Overseas in a tough matchup, I do kind of want to get away from him. There are plenty of options generally available on waivers that I would start ahead of Justin Fields this week. Breece Hall at running back. I do have him lower than I would most weeks, but generally if you have Breece Hall, he's in the top 20. I am starting him. And then Garrett Wilson, same idea. The Pat-Surtain matchup will move him down in my rankings, but he's still going to be high enough. On the notes I have right here, he's at 14. That may change and show up differently on your screen, but I'm going to have a hard time getting away from Garrett Wilson. And then let's talk about Mason Taylor, the tight end for the Jets, creeping up, higher snap share. He's looking to be the second target in this offense. He's got to be owned. I've got him as a borderline starter. I want to see about one more week. I want to see him heating up and on fire before I'm locked in going forward with him. But if you need an option, maybe you only had Hawkinson and he's on bye, Mason Taylor's a great fill-in option. Okay, now we're getting into the Sunday slate. We've got the Cardinals taking on the Colts. Indianapolis favored by 6.5 with an over-under of 47.5. We're expecting some points. Let's start with the Cardinals. Kyler Murray. Hey, in draft season, I say he's a top 10 quarterback every year. That does involve some down weeks, and I think this could be one of them. What I think I've seen with the Colts is that they've become what the Giants wanted to be, which is just kind of a coincidence that it is Daniel Jones. Like, what I really mean is it wouldn't have surprised me if the Colts fired their GM and coaching staff this past offseason. I thought the Giants could have fired their coach and GM this past offseason. It's been working for the Colts. It has not been working for the Giants. This is what the Giants wish that they had been. A 4-1 team whose defense has been better than you think, whose offense has been scoring against really good defenses. I don't think this is an amazing matchup for Kyler. So I've said he'll finish top 10 most years. This could be one of those down weeks. I do not know how this team rebounds after a horrible loss to the Titans. With Amari DiMercato fumbling at the goal line, they give up 2 scores to lose the game somehow. And I don't know about the coaching staff or the resilience of this team to bounce back. If you have Kyler and he's your only option, he is still a decent start. This is not a shutdown defense. I'll be using Kyler, but I'm just not excited about the Cardinals. Someone asked if I could only watch one team, who would it be? It's not the Cardinals. They are not an enjoyable team to watch. Let's talk running backs for the Cardinals. So without Trey Benson, what we saw last week was Michael Carter and Bam Knight in a hot hand situation. That is what the coaches said it would be. Bam Knight did get in the end zone. Carter got in the end zone. I expect that Michael Carter will be the hotter hand in most weeks. Amari DiMercato fumbled at the goal line. He wasn't actually being used before that either. And that did happen a little bit later in the game, like in the second half. I do not expect that they go back to Amari DiMercato very much. They already pulled up guys from the practice squad to avoid making him their lead guy. He's not someone I'm starting. I don't know that he even necessarily needs to be rostered in a lot of leagues. He put up 80 yards rushing last week. 70 of it was on that touchdown, and that was on 3 touches. Let's move on to wide receivers for the Cardinals. It's Marvin Harrison. That's really the only option that we're considering. And similar to Garrett Wilson, like we've talked about, hey, he's going to be a starter for me most weeks. I'll bring up a news tidbit. Drew Petzing, the offensive coordinator for the Cardinals, did come out after last Sunday and say, I watched the film. We're going to try to get the ball to Marv more. I don't. That does not really mean very much to me. He watches the film every week. He knows Marv. I don't. When coaches say that, he's the one who picks. I expect that he will make the same types of choices that he made in the past. I'm not really moving Marv up based on that. I just kind of like the player and I wish that they would use him more. If you have Trey McBride, you're starting Trey McBride. We don't need to talk very much about that. Let's move on to the Colts. Daniel Jones. I'm in. I'm in until I'm told I shouldn't be, and he just has been continuing to roll. He's a top 10, I think, starter for me this week. Other players on the Colts, there's not a ton to talk about. If you have these guys, you are probably using them. Jonathan Taylor, one of the best running backs for this week, and any week. Michael Pittman has quietly been a top 15 wide receiver. I'll have him ranked as such this week. The last year Michael Pittman was healthy in 2023. I think he finished as wide receiver 13, and he's right in that range right now. And last year we were told he was playing with a back issue. So I'm believing it that it will be Pittman. If you have Tyler Warren, you should be starting Tyler Warren. If you have a lineup that makes you think you shouldn't be starting Tyler Warren, then you should be trading Tyler Warren. He is that good, and that's generally, you either want that in your lineup or you want that in someone else's lineup with that value at a different position in your lineup. Got it? Got it. The next game, we've got the Chargers traveling across the country to Miami to play the Dolphins in what could still be the Florida Heat. Let's start with the Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa playing this Chargers defense. This Chargers defense is stingy against fantasy quarterbacks. I like Tua in plenty of matchups. This is not one of them. So if I can get away from Tua, I am. Devon Achane is basically the opposite of that. I'll be starting him against anyone. He's basically a must start in most leagues. Let's move on. Let's talk wide receivers and tight ends for the Dolphins, which is really interesting. Wide receivers, it's Jalen Waddle. People thought it could be Malik. It has not been. It's really just Waddle and now Darren Waller. Is he the new Jonnu Smith? Is that carrying over from last year? Am I fully buying in? A little bit. I think Waller needs to be owned in all leagues. There's a lot of good tight end what ifs this year. Mason Taylor emerging, Tyler Warren emerging, Darren Waller possibly emerging. I'm not totally sure. So I'm feeling it. He's got to be owned. Am I starting him? There's a lot of guys that I might start ahead of Darren Waller, but if I'm in an emergency, it's as good a bet as any. Let's move to the other side of the ball with the Chargers. Justin Herbert had a great week one. We thought, man, this is amazing. Jim Harbaugh saying we're going to make Justin Herbert an MVP, and then it's kind of slowed down. So Justin Herbert has become a matchup play. It just so happens that the Dolphins are one of the best matchups. So I've got Justin Herbert within, I think, my top 5. I'll have the final numbers up on screen. But if you have Justin Herbert, I would be starting him. A lot of wide receivers for this team, and I don't know exactly how it's going to go in any given week. So I've got it ranked Quentin Johnston, then Ladd, then Keenan, with Johnston a starter, Ladd a decent flex option, and then Keenan a deeper flex option. It will kind of just depend where the touchdown goes between those guys. Based on how I feel confident with starting them, that is how I have them ranked. And then running backs for the Chargers. As far as I know right now, Hassan Haskins is the next man up with Kimani Vidal behind him. There's not really enough that we know about these guys to gauge who's the better player. Kimani Vidal, drafted in the 6th round last year, didn't make the team this year, the final 53-man roster. He was on the practice squad before getting called up. Hassan Haskins has been around for a couple years. I haven't really seen a track record of success from either guy, and this could end up becoming more of a hot hand situation while Omarion Hampton is out. We have seen Greg Roman do that when he worked with the Ravens, and they went to Alex Collins, who wound up being good. So I think whoever it is here, if it's one dude, will be a startable guy. I think it's Haskins, but I don't feel that confident about it. As soon as we know after this week, someone will be a startable piece. Next game, we've got the Patriots taking on the Saints. Let's start with the Patriots, who are favored in this game by 3.5 with an over-under of 45.5. Start with the quarterback, Drake May. I like this matchup against the Saints. If you have Drake May, if you drafted him late, he's been pretty good for you. A down week against the Bills. No passing touchdowns, no rushing touchdowns, but I expect him to get back on track for fantasy this week in a much easier matchup. Stephon Diggs has back-to-back 100-yard games. He is now a solid flex option for me and will be ranked as such. Ramondre Stevenson will not go away no matter how many times he fumbles the ball. He's not really someone that the Patriots can cut either for this year. So it's Ramondre Stevenson and then Travion Henderson after that. And until I see Travion Henderson getting more snaps or being out there earlier, or being used in more crucial situations, it's hard to start him. I still believe that he can get there this year, but we're running out of time. For the Saints, I don't know that anybody is starting Spencer Rattler. If you have Chris Olave, you want to find a way to get him into your lineup. The main concern with Chris Olave coming into the year was concussions, or that this team would be terrible. I don't think concerns about a team being terrible are very good in the preseason. And right now, we've found through 5 weeks, Olave is still good for fantasy. He's ranked about wide receiver 23 on the season in terms of production. And I'll have him ranked close to that each week based on bye situations. So if you can get him into your lineup, I would like that. And then Alvin Kamara, losing ground to Kendre Miller. I don't know that I'm looking to start Kendre Miller. His snap share has been increasing. He's at about 35% on Sunday with 10 carries. He is out carrying Alvin Kamara. Kamara is still getting way more targets than Kendre Miller. This is kind of just becoming a situation where the two guys just hurt each other to the point where Kamara is now more of a deeper flex option instead of a solid RB2. Let's move on to the next game. The Browns playing the Steelers. Pittsburgh favored by 5.5. So for this matchup, let's start with the Browns. And I think we should start with Quinshon Judkins, who has been very good since coming back from being away from the team. Not just very good, like he's been good against very good rush defenses. The Packers have a good run defense. The Lions have a good run defense. The Vikings have a good run defense. He scored 16.5, 21.5, and 13.5 against those teams. Pittsburgh in the past has had very good run defenses, but Pittsburgh right now is not as good as the Packers, Lions, and Vikings at stopping the run. I will be using Quinshon Judkins. I'm really only considering tight ends on the Browns after Judkins. So it's Fannin and Njoku, and they're both decent starts. They're both getting targeted by Dylan Gabriel. They both have as good a chance as any tight end to find the end zone. I'm not sure which one of them is the better one to start. If you need a deep option, these are fine options for you. Let's move to the other side of the ball. If you're in a one quarterback league, I don't have Aaron Rodgers as a great start this week. Most weeks he is not a starter. Against this Browns defense, he's definitely not a starter for me. He's an old angry man. He might come out and have a great game, but it won't be in my lineup. Other players for the Steelers I'm considering, DK Metcalf. He's basically a top 20 player for me in any game that the Steelers are playing, including this one against the Browns. And then Jaylen Warren. I've been wrong about Jaylen Warren since the preseason. I will have him ranked as a starter this week, but it is a very, very hard matchup. The Browns are not winning a lot of games, but this defense is very good. This team could be in more games based on the strength of this defense. This is not a full, colossally awful team. They have a very strong defense. Caleb Johnson, as a deep stash, doesn't even need to be rostered, but coming out of the bye is when we start to see things change for rookies, for teams. So I'll have my eye open for him, and if he shows a larger workload, I would be grabbing him, but he's definitely not someone I'm considering starting or really considering rostering in most leagues. Let's move on to the Cowboys taking on the Panthers, and we'll start with the Cowboys. Dak Prescott has been excellent this year. If you remove the fantasy line from week one, I think he's been a top 3, top 1 quarterback on the year. And in that game, although he didn't score touchdowns, he looked really good. Dak has looked incredible. If you have Dak Prescott, you picked him up late, you're not sure if you're starting him, I'm starting him this week. This Panthers matchup is very good for fantasy quarterbacks. That will carry over to George Pickens. I'll be starting George Pickens. Flournoy? No way. That's my thought on him. I'm not sure he'll even have a ranked number on your screen. And then Javonte Williams, he's basically a top 12 back until we see that he shouldn't be. Jaden Blue has been elevated to become the starter over Miles Sanders. I don't know how much that says about Jaden Blue's skill set, how much that says about Miles Sanders' skill set. It's still Javonte Williams, and I don't really have any worries about anyone taking over this job from him. Carolina Panthers, if you're in a 1 quarterback league, we're not starting Bryce Young. Even if you're in a 2 quarterback league, in a 10 team or a 12 team league, I don't know that he's going to be cracking the top 20. Maybe he will. We'll have it up on the screen. Let's talk about other positions. Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle. It's a revenge game for Rico Dowdle. I don't know exactly what will happen. As of recording this, Dave Canales says Chuba Hubbard is day to day. When situations like this happen, where a running back in a backup role comes in and has a great game, I think we overestimate how much they will eat into the main starter's production. The team has had Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle on their roster since training camp. This part seems obvious, and they chose Chuba. In the earlier weeks, it was all Chuba, little bit of Rico. I expect that they will go back to that. They've seen both of these guys in practice. They've been around them. They liked Chuba more. I don't know that one game that we got to watch will change their mind nearly enough or nearly as much as all of the practice that they've had together. So if Chuba Hubbard is starting, he will basically just usurp whatever rank is shown on screen for these guys. Ted McMillan, the only wide receiver that I'm really considering for the Panthers. Jalen Coker could be back. Xavier Legette had a touchdown recently. I don't really want to start either one, and I think those guys just kind of eat into each other's workload. Ted McMillan has been consistently getting 8+ targets. This passing offense does go through him. I want him in my lineup. Let's move on to the Seahawks traveling to the Jaguars. We'll start with the Seahawks. Sam Darnold coming off a great game against the Bucs. I'd like to move him up. I'd like to get him in my top 12. There are just amazing quarterbacks ahead of him. So there are so many usable quarterbacks this year. If you have Sam Darnold, if you've lost a quarterback this year, it's as good a year as any to lose a quarterback, because there have been so many guys who are usable fantasy quarterbacks in a one quarterback league. I'm not turning to Sam Darnold this week, but I think he could be all right against the Jags. Let's talk about players that I am for sure using, though. That's Ken Walker. He's going to be about a top 15, top 20 running back for me. And Zach Charbonnet will be in my ranks, although much later. While this is about a 50-50 split, it does, to my eye, seem like they're using Ken Walker more. Ken Walker seems like the better option. It's just they're using both guys. Maybe they're keeping both of them healthy. I don't know exactly what that is. I don't try to dictate how a team should use their players based on how I perceive them. I kind of just watch what they do and react to that, and it's been about half and half, with Ken Walker not getting as much work as I wanted him to get in the preseason, but he will still be a starter for me. JSN, if you have him, you're using him. And then Cooper Kupp as a sneaky deep flex option. I think it's an okay desperation play. Let's talk Trevor Lawrence. He'll be outside my top 15-ish quarterbacks this week, basically a sit for me. This Liam Cohen team has been doing really well. The Jags are 4-1, but it has not translated to great success for Trevor Lawrence and the passing game yet. We might see that as they get more familiar with the playbook, expand more concepts down the season, but it's not happening yet. Running backs for the Jags, Travis Etienne, I'm fully believing. Travis Etienne in 2023 was running back 3, and I don't think that can happen by accident. I think you have to be a good enough player. The Jags had Travis and Tank and Bashal Tutin in camp. They shipped Tank out of town, and Bashal Tutin's getting about 25% of the snaps. This is Travis Etienne's backfield. He's going to be top 15 basically every week. Let's talk about the disappointment in the room with Brian Thomas Jr. This has not been a great year for him. The team is going to him. The targets are there. On Monday night against the Chiefs, Brian Thomas Jr. drew a pass interference in the end zone to get this team to the 1-yard line. Like, they are using him. It's just not showing up for fantasy yet. And I think it will. It might not get him back to wide receiver 4 like he was last year, but I think he can get back to being an alpha, a wide receiver 1, someone that's locked up in your lineup. The next game we have is kind of the injury bowl for one team. It's the Rams at the Ravens. Derrick Henry, we were drafting him in the first round. I was saying I didn't want to draft him in the first round, but I can't take a victory lap here. What I was saying was basically some year Derrick Henry will slow down. And I don't know that he has. It's just everyone around him is injured. The Ravens played the Texans missing 2 O-linemen, multiple key defensive players, their fullback, and their MVP level quarterback. It is hard to keep running an offense and play well as a football team if that much of your cap space is injured for one game. This team really needs just time. They're playing against time right now. They play this week and then have a bye week. I'm going to like Derrick Henry a lot more in the second half of the year. I do not like him at all this week, though. They could be missing a lot of those same players, and the Rams are one of the best teams against fantasy running backs. So this might be a week that I'm saying if you can get away from Derrick Henry, I'll give you a little bit of permission. Normally I'm a start your studs kind of guy, but with this many injuries, I would be okay moving away with Derrick Henry based on his ranking. For Zay Flowers, though, I think Cooper Rush, and if some of these players come back, there's room for Zay Flowers to have a good fantasy day. Just catching a couple passes. If you can get 6 for 70 and maybe a chance at the end zone, he is still usable compared to someone like Derrick Henry, but he's definitely taking a hit in the rankings. All of the Ravens are taking a hit in the rankings. And then Mark Andrews, he's not a priority start for me. There's a good chance he's your best option and should be used. Let's move to the other side of the ball where I think it could be a scoring bonanza. I have shot Matt Stafford way up in ranks for this week. Some of that is based on the matchup, and some of that is based on the production that he's been putting out each week. Adding another great wide receiver to this offense has helped Stafford way more than I thought it could. On the year, he's quarterback 6. The Ravens, with injuries, have been giving up some of the most fantasy points to every single position group. So I've got Puka incredibly high. I've got Devontae Adams incredibly high. I've got Stafford in my top 7, 8 players. Kyren Williams is a must start, although I would have Kyren Williams as a must start anyway. I was never really worried about Blake Corum coming in taking a role this year. Blake Corum is getting more usage and will get some touchdowns just based on when he's out there. If the team is in the red zone, they're not swapping to Kyren. They're just kind of saying, this is a Blake Corum drive. He can get that work done, but it's mostly Kyren drives. So I'm totally still in on Kyren. Basically, if you have a member of the Rams, start them in this matchup, unless we find out later in the week that every injured player for the Ravens is now healthy. Titans at Raiders. Raiders favored by 4.5 at home. Over under of 41.5. It's a low scoring affair predicted by Vegas. Let's talk about the Titans. If you have Cam Ward, you want to get away from Cam Ward. This offense has not been clicking. I thought, hey, number 1 overall pick, like this could be okay. This could be good for Calvin Ridley. I have been wrong about that. Let's talk about Calvin Ridley. He's not really been usable in most weeks. I think some of that has been the Titans played really good defenses. They played Denver. They played LA, the Rams. They played Indianapolis, who has been much better on defense than I thought they would be. They played the Texans. And then last week played the Cardinals, where they finally got a win and were able to move the ball. So if the story of the year so far has just been the Titans played a lot of really good defenses and Calvin Ridley is okay, I'm ready to buy in on Calvin going forward. I'm not sure that is what has happened, though. It looks that way. If Calvin Ridley has a good game this week, I'm basically back into where I had him in the preseason, and I will just write it off as really bad matchups, rookie quarterback, things are starting to click, and the matchups are getting easier. So I've got Calvin Ridley as a usable flex this week. Not what I wanted him to be when I was drafting him. Same thing with Tony Pollard. Tough matchups for him throughout the year. This is an easier matchup. The Raiders defense doesn't really stop anyone. Teams have blown out the Raiders multiple times, so I'm fine with using Tony Pollard here. So let's talk about the Raiders players, and we'll start with the running back, Ashton Genty. It is very tough for me to say that name sometimes. Hey, I like this matchup against the Titans. This is kind of a get-right matchup. This O-line for the Raiders, not amazing. Everybody knows that, but there are plenty of times when they play a defense that will allow a running back to run on them. They played against a Bears defense that was missing some players. Genty ran wild. I think he can kind of get back to that against these Titans. This team gave up big runs to the Cardinals. Genty's a much better player than Michael Carter, DeMarcado, or Bam Knight. If this is a get-right game, if you're a running back looking for a team to play against, like Titans are good. Titans is a good option. I like that. I'm going to have a hard time getting away from Genty regardless, but I think this is a good matchup for him. For the tight end, if you have Brock Bowers, if he's playing, you're playing Brock Bowers. If you have Brock Bowers and you think you shouldn't be playing him, you need to make a trade. Jacoby Myers, this is a solid matchup for both offenses in the passing game. I'm totally fine with using Jacoby Myers here. Same as Calvin Ridley. I thought he would have a better year. It hasn't quite worked out. But these two teams playing each other, they both have kind of weak pass defenses. I don't really want to use Geno Smith. This could be a good game for him. But man, he might be one of the bottom quarterbacks of the league with all the interceptions that he's been throwing. And there are so many great options to get away from Geno. I can't see myself starting him. Speaking of terrible quarterbacks, let's move on to the next game, the Bengals at the Packers. It has been announced Jake Browning will not be starting for the Bengals. It will be Joe Flacco, who they traded for this week. Am I using Joe Flacco for fantasy? No. I don't know that you needed me to tell you not to use Joe Flacco, but no. I think it's interesting that the Packers played the Browns, went on bye, and are now playing Joe Flacco again on a different team. I don't think that happens very much. Just kind of an interesting note. Other players for the Browns. I am back in on T. Higgins. I am back in on Chase Brown. In a past video of a recap, I said, without Joe Burrow, I don't really want T. Higgins, and I don't really want to be starting Chase Brown. That is fully changed, but not for this week. This Packers defense is one of the best against running backs, so I expect better days for Chase Brown. I don't expect it to be on Sunday. Similar for T. Higgins, but not similar for Jamar Chase. I don't know. He's just such an amazing talent that he could take one to the house on any play. If you have some, I mean, put it this way. Like, I expect Justin Jefferson to be fine. Carson Wentz can throw to him. Joe Flacco is not much worse or much different than Carson Wentz. I'll be starting Jamar Chase as a top 10 player for the rest of the season. T. Higgins will get up to about top 24 in future weeks, and Chase Brown will get up to around top 15 in future weeks, just not in this matchup with Flacco coming in on a short week against an incredibly tough defense. Flacco did just prepare for this defense before. I still don't want to start players against them. Let's flip to the other side with the Packers, who are playing one of the easiest defensive matchups in the league, the Bengals. The Bengals have been one of the best matchups to play your fantasy players against. I'm going to keep it about that way for this week, but going forward, I do expect that to change. I've said this a couple times now, that Jake Browning has been very bad for this Bengals defense. A lot of drives that he had, he goes 3 and out, and then his defense is back out on the field. Or he goes out there and throws an interception and puts his defense back out on the field. Defenses get tired in the second half, and they especially get tired if they're consistently out there and can't rest. I think that's some of what Jake Browning was doing to his defense, and I don't expect that Flacco will be doing that. I don't know that we're going to see a big change this week, so I'm starting Josh Jacobs. I'm starting Jordan Love, who would be a sit in some weeks. He's a definite start for me here. And then at wide receiver, I don't know who I'm starting. Is it Romeo Doubs? Sometimes. Is it Matthew Golden having a rookie breakout coming out of the bye week? I look for that. Do I want to start him? No. Tucker Kraft? Yes. If you have Tucker Kraft, he is a start. Let's talk about the 49ers at the Bucs. Let's start with the 49ers in this game. Not quite healthy. A lot of missing players last week. And as of recording this right now, I don't know who all is starting and who all is sitting for the 49ers. If Brock Purdy is playing, he's generally a sit for me. There's a lot of great options that I would start over him. If any of these wide receivers are playing in this order, I will have them ranked around wide receiver 20. Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, Kendrick Bourne. Pearsall and Jennings missed the game last week. Basically what I'm saying is, if Jennings is starting, but Pearsall is also there, I'm starting Ricky Pearsall as a top 20 receiver, and then Jennings will be ranked accordingly, and Kendrick Bourne will be even further back. If it's just Kendrick Bourne, he's top 20. This offense, the wide receiver one, is just really valuable to have. So whichever one of those guys is it, I'll be putting them into lineups. CMC, if you have him, you're using him. Not really using Jacob Tonjes. There's no George Kittle. Let's move on to the Bucs. If you have Baker Mayfield, this has been a very good matchup since losing Joey Bosa. The 49ers give up points. You can throw on them. And Baker Mayfield has been a very good quarterback for years now. So if I have Baker, he's in my lineup. Ibuka, we're firing him up. Rachaad White, if Bucky misses this game, and I think he does, I don't think Rachaad White is particularly good, but he scores plenty of fantasy points. He was the lead guy before Bucky Irving came to town last year and was always a usable fantasy asset despite not being a very good player. I don't think that's changed at all. So if Bucky's out, Rachaad White is a top 24 running back for me. All right, we've got 3 more games to go through. Let's talk about the Sunday night game, the Lions and the Chiefs. Kansas City is favored, but this is a 51.5 over under. I'm expecting quite a bit of scoring in this game. Let's start with the Lions. Let's start with Jared Goff, who I've got as a borderline starter, not quite a great streamer. The Chiefs defense isn't what they've been in the past couple of years. Jared Goff could end up having a great day. Any game can be a blow up for these Lions. There's just plenty of options that I feel more confident starting over Jared Goff. Let's talk about Gibbs and Montgomery. Start them both. Basically start them both each week. Some of that disrespect of David Montgomery, I've been hearing that creep back up, that he's the second guy in any given week. Montgomery and Gibbs can easily both score a touchdown. It has happened quite a bit. It could happen in this week. I feel fine starting either one of these guys. If you have Amon-Ra, he's a go. If you have Laporta, he's a go. If you have Jameson Williams, they get him the ball every week. There are times they target him one time. I guess I'm staying away from him. If you are way down after Thursday, he's still a decent boom bust option to get some deep touchdowns, but it has not happened in a while. So I'm generally staying away. Let's move to the Chiefs. Mahomes, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the world. The Lions are a decent defense. I've got Mahomes as a borderline starter for this week. Once Rashee Rice is back, I think Mahomes will be much closer to top 6 every single week. But right now, it's hard to get him. It's hard to get him up there when teams are playing the Bengals, teams are playing the Dolphins, good teams are playing the Panthers. That all kind of pushes Mahomes down. Xavier Worthy, this over-under has me boosting him up even higher than I would in a normal week. I expect that the Chiefs will have to score to keep up with the Lions. Lions can score on basically anyone, and the Chiefs can get the ball moving. I think they can find creative ways to get the ball into Xavier Worthy's hands. Tyquan Thornton and Hollywood Brown are deep flex options for me. Thornton, not an amazing player, cut by a very bad offensive room. Maybe it was just a bad general manager at the Patriots. I'm fine if you have Tyquan Thornton, using him in the same way you would Jameson Williams as a flex option if you're way down after Thursday night to get a long touchdown. That does happen. I could see it happening against the Lions. Let's talk the running backs for the Chiefs. Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. Ugh. Brashard Smith? Maybe. It's a bad three-headed monster. Basically, if I can get away from using these guys, I will. Kareem Hunt got 2 touchdowns last week. Those touchdowns could have just as easily gone to someone like Travis Kelce, or it could have been Pacheco getting there. I don't really want to chase it. These guys are easily both outside my top 24. I'll have a ranking on screen for them, but I do not want to be using them. We've got 2 Monday night games. Let's start with the first one, and this is really just going to be a list of goes and nos. You'll understand what I mean once we start talking about it. Let's go with the Bills. Bills at Falcons. Josh Allen, go. James Cook, go. Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman, they're okay flexes, maybe not a go or a no. Dalton Kincaid, he's actually been tight end 2 on the year. He is a go. Let's go to the Falcons. Bijan, go. Penix, no. Drake London, go. Pitts, We kind of hoped that Kyle Pitts would develop in the way that Dalton Kincaid has this year and be really good. It's not quite there yet. He still is part of this passing offense. Maybe he's not a very good player. Am I starting Kyle Pitts? He's a maybe. Probably a sit. Let's talk about the final game of the week, the second Monday night game. The Chicago Bears travel to face the Big Red Commies. Let's start with the Bears. Caleb Williams, he's a borderline start for me. The scrambling is real. He will run and extend plays, and when he gets those yards, that's great for fantasy. There will be some questionable throws from him, a little bit of accuracy issues, but we've seen in the past couple weeks with Ben Johnson, this offense clicking more and more. I think coming out of the bye week, I'm hoping to see a lot more growth for Caleb and for this offense. He's borderline start for me though. Rome Odunze must start until I see otherwise. He's been the wide receiver 1 for this offense. We weren't sure who it would be going into the season. A lot of us were drafting DJ Moore ahead of Rome Odunze, but it's been pretty clearly Rome, and I'll be using him in every matchup until I see that I shouldn't be. DJ Moore, I'll get away from him if I can here, but it wouldn't really surprise me if coming out of the bye, this offense has had a chance to reset. They've had a training camp with a brand new coach, new players coming in like Loveland and Burden, getting Rome Odunze into a new offense, and then a couple games, and then a break. Maybe they've been able to reset and kind of refocus and go. They got a win going into the bye. It wouldn't surprise me to see DJ Moore in an expanded role, but I don't really want to start him. DeAndre Swift, he's been the lead guy. Maybe, like we've been saying, rookie Kyle Monangai takes on a bigger role as the year goes on, but I'm not really changing that much about my rankings this week thinking that could happen. It could, but it's not really creeping into my rankings. If you have DeAndre Swift, there's a good chance he's at least a flex option for you. Let's move on to the Commies. Jaden Daniels has just been really good. Caleb first pick in the draft, Jaden Daniels second pick in this draft. Coming off of the knee injury, another week removed from it. This Bears secondary is still missing pieces. I think Jaden Daniels has no trouble moving the ball in this offense. Deebo Samuel is a go. I still think Zach Ertz is a go, even coming off of a 0-point week. It's been the first 0-point week for Zach Ertz in a long time. I think he gets back to being kind of that top 8 tight end on the year and a consistent producer. And then Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I'm not excited to start him. I'll have him as a top 25, top 26 in that range option, a decent flex play. He is getting a larger role. 2 touchdowns against the Chargers could be the breakout game. That does not mean that the Commies coaches will view him in that way. If I'm really excited about him and I think he should be the starter, that doesn't mean he gets to be the starter. So let's see another week of it happening. Ashton Genty had a huge game against these Bears, but they were missing Grady Jarrett, multiple defensive backs. I don't know. We'll check the injury reports going into this week. I think they will be a little bit better on defense after getting healthier, but Krosky-Merritt will be a flex play for me. And that does it. We have hit every game of this week. Covered starts and sits. We'll have ranks on the screen for all of these guys. If you're looking for updates later in the week, they will be in the form of YouTube shorts typically. I don't know that I will come back and fully update this video unless there is massive news and we need to change something. Pretty much it will just be in the form of a YouTube short that will be linked back to this video. So if you are looking for updates on players, check there. Thank you very much. Hey, if this has helped you set your lineup or has helped you set your lineup in the past, please consider a like, a subscribe. These videos take a while to make. We're still growing. I'm just one dude. We're trying our best. Thank you very much. We'll close this one here.